Hi, my name is Daryl, and welcome back to my shop. Today I want to talk about something you hear about a lot. You know the old saying, you can never have too many clamps, right? Well, along with that, a lot of times you end up with situations like this. You got clamps leaning against the wall, you got them piled up in a pile somewhere, and you really need somewhere to put them. So today I'm going to talk about a clamp rack. Now that I've moved my workbench away from this wall right here, I want to go ahead and put the rest of my parallel bar clamps on the wall over here, and at some point I'd like to bring all the other clamps I have into this area right here. So today I'm going to show you how I built this clamp rack. By staggering the placement of the bars on the clamps and setting one shelf so that the edge is lined up with the back of the bar on the shelf above it, I can get two clamps in the space of one. Let me show you what I mean. So here's a 40-inch, one of my 48-inch Jorgensen cabinet masters that doesn't appear to want to cooperate today. Alright, so I open up that jaw there and I put that up top. Now originally I had designed it so that the clamp could sit in there like that, which it can, and that's not a problem. The only thing that I find is that, you know, with the placement being as close as it is, the head of the clamp that goes on this rack would bump into this shaft here. So I just found it was easier to do it with the jaws open, which isn't much of a problem for me. So I'm going to go ahead and load this puppy up so I can show you what I mean. Not sure if you noticed, but some of these did fit a little tight. I was trying to get this particular rack to fit the width of this shelf here, so I did make a few compromises on the size, and it does fit a little tightly between the bars, but it is functional. And that's something I'm going to correct when I do the next design. Well, let's get to it. So I've gone ahead and done the majority of the marking on my work pieces for my new clamp rack. Now I want my slots to be roughly about 2 inches long, so I went ahead and I used a marking gauge, and I set my marking gauge to 2 inches. And I used the marking gauge to scribe a line at the 2-inch mark down my board. Once I got that done, then I went ahead and made measurements based on my clamps. Actually, I made these measurements based on the Jorgensen clamps, which are a tad bit larger than the Bessie clamps that I'm going to be using, but that just gave a little bit more room for the Bessies, and if I decided I wanted to switch things around, I could put the clamps away on either rack. So I decided to just go with those measurements, and it just so happens that those measurements work out to be a 1/2 inch for the bar, which is a little bit larger than the Bessies, and 2 1/4 inches between slots. So basically what I did here is I went ahead and I measured the 1/2 inch and then 2/4 of an inch and 1/2 inch and 2/4 of an inch. Now on my other board, which is right here, I don't know if you can see this or not, but I have it set up. so that one bar one bar sits between the two bars on the other level. All right. So I took my square and I transferred those marks. I extended each mark from the scribe line to the edge of the board, around to the side, and around to the other side. And the reason why I do that, because that is a lot of work, but the reason why I do that is I would rather take the time now and make those extra marks than to go to the table saw to cut these slots out and end up making a mistake somewhere. So sometimes you just got to look at your process and evaluate whether or not it's worth the extra time to do the extra work to keep from having a problem. You know the old saying, measure twice, cut once, kind of the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and finish marking this out, and then I'm going to take it over to the drill press and we're going to drill the holes that are going to round out the bottom of the slots. Now that that's done, heading over to the drill press. Okay. All I have to do is line up the bit with this mark right here and basically drill a hole at each and every one of those marks. So let's do that. Nice. Now that I have the holes, my holes and my lines marked out, I can go to the table saw and I can cut these slots. Now we brought our material over to the table saw, where we're going to go ahead and cut the slots that are going to allow the bars of the clamps to fall into to slide right into this rack here. First, we're going to set our blade height here, and we're just going to bring up the tooth just to the point where it clears, the bottom of that hole. Now that we have that set up, all right, here we go. It's important to periodically stop and clear these little pieces away. We don't want these becoming projectiles. The reason why you'll see that I mark these slots on both sides, because as you can see, this is as far as I can go with this side, from this side. So if I flip it over and I have it marked on this side as well, now I can catch the rest of them. Okay, I'm not sure if you could tell from the video, but cutting this taller board was getting just a little bit too dicey for my comfort on the table saw. So I'm going to move over to the bandsaw to complete the rest of the cuts. now that I have the slots cut in, I need to cut both these pieces to final length so I can move on with the next step. Alright. While we're at the miter saw, we go ahead and cut down the side pieces to final length as well. I have this leftover piece of plywood in my lumber rack over there, so I'm going to go ahead and cut me up 2 pieces of this to use for the back. Since the material for the back of the rack is about an inch taller than it needs to be, I'm going to go ahead and make a 1/2 inch deep rabbet on the mating edges of the shelves for the rack. And I'm going to cut that here at the table saw. I'm marking the edges to make sure that I don't accidentally put the rabbet on the wrong side, because it would be disastrous at this point. So we got the height set for the rabbet. Now we need to set the width, and to do that we're going to take a scrap piece of the same plywood and line it up right here. Use your finger. You can use your fingertip to make sure that you're just about right as far as being flush. And that looks pretty good. In this case, accuracy really isn't as pressing as normal, so you know, just being close gets the job done today. Now, to make the other part of the cut here, we're going to do that part vertically. As you can see here, the height is good. So now we just got to get the width right, and that looks pretty good. So lock that down. All right, and we'll take a little test cut. So now we have a rabbet, and we can put our plywood in there. Awesome. All right. Now it's time for a little bit of assembly. So what we're going to do is we're going to take what is going to be our top piece here, and we're going to glue and screw this back piece into the dados that we cut. So we're going to need a clamp. So we got our clamps. So we're going to need a clamp. So we're going to need to clamp it, and because this plywood has a little bit of a bow to it, we can use that to our advantage. And when we clamp it in the middle, it should bring it. Not quite tall enough. So we clamp this in the middle. When we apply clamping pressure in the middle of the board, it should bring it. It should flatten out the curve and get a nice tight fit. So, first things first, I'm going to add a little bit of glue. Okay, we are almost there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark where these two parts go. And then I'm going to bring those, take a square, going to take my square and go ahead and mark that out. And mark that out. Okay, so now we have our rough shape, which may or may not be visible, but we got a curve here and a curve here. So I'm going to cut this over at the bandsaw. If you have two pieces, we need to make this piece and this piece the same curves, the same profile. So the easiest way to take care of that is to go ahead and use, the easiest way to go ahead to do that is go ahead and use double stick tape. Now, something about double stick tape, a little bit goes a long way. If you don't want to have to fight this thing to get it apart, you don't want to use too much. So just two little small pieces is all you need. have two sides that are the same profile. Easy peasy. So now we get to separate it. Oh, came off easier than usual. Go ahead and pull your tape off. Alright. Then lay them out. And then I'm going to go ahead and make some marks to make sure that we get them installed the same way. Here. Alright. So I'm going to line this up here. Then we're going to add a few screws up top. Okay, and there we have it, a clamp rack. And now, for the finishing part of this, we're going to add a French cleat, install it like so, and as you drop down on the wall, the weight of it pulls this in. It pulls this surface here in and pulls it flat to the wall. Actually can hold a lot of space, hold a lot of weight. So let's get I think I should probably use a longer screw. If I can do that without splitting it. So we got our clamp rack completed here, and I went ahead and temporarily cleared off the French cleats that I have on the wall here so that we can give this puppy a whirl. So let's go ahead and put her up there, good and sturdy. Alright, so we're good and sturdy. You can see that the French cleat there, you know, it's up there, it's rock solid. I'm going to go ahead and load up all my clamps. Alright, I would say that this is pretty successful. They're all up there, they're all sturdy, they're all nice and neat. I'm very happy. Now, like I said before, you know, I'm able to utilize less space because I'd have to take up pretty much this entire wall if I wanted to put these all, you know, one next to the other. But I'm able to get this one here into just a half inch of extra space here, where I need at least an inch or so to add it right next to it. And I don't mind having to open some of these bigger clamps up in order to put them in. They will fit the other way. If this project is something that can help you out in your shop, you can definitely get this done. I did it in an afternoon, and that's including taking the time to move the camera around and explain a few things and all that. You could get this done in a weekend easily. So, you know, don't let anything hold you back. Dread not and get woodworking. Thanks. Good night.